Welcome, everybody, to Eagles on the Air, the Salesian High School podcast brought to you straight from our broadcast studio. I'm your host, Steve Celestio, and I have a great guest for you today. Our guest is a member of the Salesian High School graduating class of 2023. I would like to introduce Mr. Ramon Reid. Ramon, welcome to Eagles on the Air.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being back here.
I know that you spoke to a couple guys from our advancement department, and they were like, who's going to come on the podcast next? Who's going to come on the podcast next? Randy Tavares opened up my office door. He goes, "You got Ramon Reid." I said, "Yes, we do."
Absolutely.
So, Ramon, I'm so happy that you decided to come on. I think we're going to have some great stuff to talk about here today. So I don't think I need to tell you, but please don't be shy. Talk and let that personality go, kid. But I start off Eagles on the Air, all our guests, with the same question. We want to hear all about your experiences at Salesian, before Salesian, and what Salesian's done for you. So without further ado, what is your Salesian story? What has it been like for you?
Wow. That's a very deep question. But for me personally, I went to middle school at Nativity of Our Blessed Lady down in the Bronx. Unfortunately, they did close not too long after COVID-19. And a big reason why I went to Salesian was because the principal at the time, his name was Tariq Hyman. He was a graduate of, I believe, the class of '96, and he was a huge influence on me throughout middle school. And he had a huge role just in the way I was coming up. If it wasn't for math class and him staying on me with my homework and just me being able to get myself to a point where, I was on honor roll throughout my entire high school career. So he was a big part of that. Another person was Mr. J. Funny enough, Mr. J was actually the receptionist at Nativity of Our Blessed Lady. So I remember my first day there, I walked in, he had the biggest smile right there in the front desk. And I remember him and my mom had a great connection, and I had a great connection with him. And when he left Nativity, I was really sad. But then when I was in 8th grade and I was learning about high school and the whole process, Mr. Hyman told me that he works there. And I was like, okay, I have to consider this. So fast forward a few months, Salesian was on my top list. Funny enough, I never did a shadow day. I never did a shadow day at Salesian. I never did one of the special events, open house or anything. I just, from word of mouth, I believed that Salesian was a great place for me, especially compared to my other options. In addition to that, it was a lot easier to get there. 60 bus, where I live in the Bronx, 123, I'm right there. And I was really excited about the opportunities that it had for me. And now, after Salesian, I'm going to St. John's University in Queens, and I'm majoring in criminal justice, minoring in international studies. And I can look back right now, because I'm a year 2, a sophomore, and I could look back at Salesian and I could really sit up here and say that Salesian had a really big part of my development to get me to where I am today.
Now, you brought up someone very near and dear to me, and that was Mr. J. And for those that don't know, Mr. J is Mr. George Jean-Pierre, who was a larger-than-life personality, one of my real good friends here at Salesian High School. And unfortunately, if you don't know, we lost him due to COVID. So it was one of the saddest things to happen in my time here at school. He had such an amazing connection with students from Nativity, with students from Our Lady of Grace. I know he was also the choir director at Mount St. Michael. So Mr. J got himself all over Catholic education. And we thought we hit a grand slam when we hired him to come here and work as the youth minister. And he was the best.
Yes, he was.
And I saw the impact that he had on all you guys. And I would go into those schools and recruit. And I would say, very simply, Mr. J works at Salesian. They're like, "Oh, Jay works there. I'm coming there."
Yeah, I was one of those.
Yeah. So I'm glad to hear some of the things you said. And one of those, you might not think that I'm glad to hear, but you said you didn't do a shadow day and you didn't come to the open house. That tells me something. That tells me that you still knew something about Salesian. You didn't come to this school blindly.
Right.
We say all the time that Salesian's very much a word-of-mouth type of school, where you heard someone say something good about school, or you asked this student, maybe a student from Nativity who comes here already. So is that basically what it was? You kind of just, through connections, heard and learned a little bit more and more about school?
Yeah, essentially it was, because when I learned about Salesian, it was my like I mentioned, Mr. Tariq Hyman, Mr. Hyman to us, he never shut up about Salesian. Like, he was a proud alumni of Salesian High School, and Salesian was always on his mind every day. And I remember when it came time for our class to apply for high school, all the boys in our class, we didn't have that many boys in my 8th grade class. We had 3 boys. I was the third one. And I remember he pulled it to the side one day and he was like, guys, you gotta apply to Salesian. I can tell you right now, look at me now, So I took his advice, I applied, and my mom also, because he talked to my mom about it, and my mom loved the idea of Salesian, especially trusting Mr. Hyman's opinion. So I went with Salesian, and I have 0 regrets. I'm happy.
I'm happy too.
Yeah.
Because I saw Ramon come to us as a quiet little 8th grade boy and just absolutely blossom. We'll talk about that in a second, but I want to run it back to Mr. Hyman, who bounced around to a couple of schools and has since settled in as the assistant principal down at St. Raymond's Elementary School.
Yes.
And I just want to reiterate, because he's probably going to see this episode, that he is one of the greatest supporters of Salesian High School, and rightfully so.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he had a great experience when he was here, and he continues to promote us to his students.
Right.
And I very, very much appreciate that. But like I said, you did come here as an 8th grader, and kind of that first year or so blended in a little bit.
Yeah.
I get to know all the 8th graders and their families through the admissions process. Mm-hmm. So they all, little by little, they start to stick out of the pile.
Yeah.
And in comes this little guy, Ramon, who's not shy to talk to this teacher and not shy to walk into this administrator's office. You got involved in student government, which I think suited you perfectly. Tell me about your ride in the student government.
Growing up, I've always had a skill in terms of speaking with older people. I've always been talented in that sense. So I've never been shy to bring up a conversation about politics or global affairs or something. In terms of interacting with younger people, I've always found that a tiny bit difficult growing up, but with older people, it was the easiest. So I always presented myself a lot more mature to people, especially, even at a younger age. So when I came to Salesian my freshman year, the seniors at the time, they saw the way I was, and, they were like, whoa, are you a freshman? And I was like, yeah, I'm a freshman. And they were telling me, they were like, hey, you should really join student council. And I remember at the time, the president of the student body, his name was Stephen Rice. Remember, he walked up to me one time, and I forgot what it was, and we were talking. He was like, hey, I think you're going to be president when you're a senior here. And, I was looking at him, I was smiling, laughing. I didn't take anything of it. But, fast forward 4 years later, and I worked my way up in student government and ran for, president with my vice president, Justin Salgado, and we both won. You
and Justin did a great job. You absolutely did. I said it to you right before we started filming today. You guys were such an impactful duo, both of you. And both of you, but since you're here, we're talking about, your achievements at Salesian High School. And you were able to balance a lot of stuff. You volunteered for everything. You were constantly giving speeches at school.
Yeah.
You had to speak to the student body about this. You had to show up to this dinner. You had to present this award. You did a lot. Wherever we were, if we needed help or volunteers from students, Ramon is number one of the first students that we picked. You managed to do all that, and you graduated with a 4-year cumulative GPA. Do you want to take a guess what it was?
Oh man, considering the fact that I guessed,
and this is 2 years ago, so I'm not expecting you to know this off the top of your head.
I'm gonna guess 96.
You are flat.
Yeah, flat.
Okay, you graduated with a 4-year cumulative GPA of 96.05.
Ooh, okay, I was close.
Not bad.
I was close.
Not
right.
bad. I think any of the parents out there watching this, if their son graduated Salesian High School with a 4-year cumulative of 96.05, they would give their son a pat on the back.
Absolutely.
So you did a great job. And I did take the time to dig up your transcript.
Oh, boy.
So I'm going to pull this out right here. You haven't seen this yet. And I'm going to ask you a couple questions off of this transcript.
All right.
This is not scripted. This is me ad-libbing here. And I'm going to look at, considering it was the most recent, we're going to look at your 12th grade.
Okay.
I'm not expecting you to go back to 9th grade.
All right. Ooh,
and for reference here, your 9th grade cumulative GPA was a 93. So it's not like it was bad. It was excellent.
Yeah. Wow.
Guess your senior year final average.
Oh, was this one a 95?
Keep going.
Oh, 97.
Keep going.
98.
98 was your senior year 12th grade average. Yeah, you nailed it. Okay, nothing below a 91. Your highest scores were 98 in 2 different classes. Can you tell me what those 2 classes were?
Oh, wait, I think I know. Because it was my favorite class, actually. Political science.
Political science, you absolutely got a 98.
Yes.
That's a 2-part class, and you got a
Yes.
98 in both
Okay,
quarters,
okay.
both semesters.
Yeah.
And you had, but that only I only counted that as one.
As one,
So
right,
there's
it was
another
separate.
98 on here.
Oh, wow. Oh man, that's a good question. Trying to see. Was it psychology?
No, that was your 91.
90. Oh my goodness, why am I having a brain fart? This is only 2 years ago.
I think before we started filming, you mentioned the teacher, and I said, "Wink, wink, don't forget that."
Economics?
Close. Very close.
Wait. AP US history.
AP government.
AP government.
AP government,
Okay,
you had a
okay.
98.
Okay.
Those are your 2 best scores.
Yeah,
Does that
okay.
feel like 100 years ago, or does that feel like a year ago?
It feels like 100 years ago.
Does it really?
It really does, yeah.
Probably because all the stuff you're taking right now in college, it's probably
yeah.
like...
Yeah, I forgot my professor from first semester already, so it's...
All right, so you took, I'm looking here at 4 years worth of high-level classes. I'm looking at AP starting in, you took AP World in sophomore year, so this is a pretty rigorous high school schedule, probably one of the more rigorous, difficult high school schedules at Salesian you could possibly take. Do you feel, and you nailed it, 97 average in sophomore year, 95 junior year, 98. Did any of this stuff here, do you feel prepare you for life? Let's not even say in college, for life at St. John's, in particular, studying criminal justice or international studies.
Me personally, I would say it does. AP government, AP US government with Mr. Federico was definitely one of my favorite classes because
And you had a 98 in it.
I know, and that just goes to show you, like Mr. Federico, every single day you go into that classroom, it's enthusiasm. There's not one day you're going in and your head is down and you feel bummed. He's gonna make you love history. Yeah. And I know one of my favorite parts of history that we covered was about Nixon, and here I am now, and I can tell you the whole story about Watergate and everything. But it was definitely that, and the way it prepared me was because that class, even though Mr. Federico was very hard on quizzes, he had us write a huge 9-10 page paper at the end of the semester. I'm in college right now, St. John's, and I'm majoring in criminal justice. You got to write a lot. You have to write a lot, and obviously I haven't written a 10-page paper yet, but the fact that I did it in high school just prepares me for that moment. So I'm happy that I had the opportunity to do that when I was in high school, during that class.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you're not the first person to come on here and mention Mr. Federico either.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you a little secret. I hope Mr. Federico sees this. I was Mr. Federico's math teacher.
Ooh.
Okay, I know Mr. Federico's been here 11, 12 years or so, something like that.
Yeah.
I was his math teacher when he was here. And Mr. Federico was the most respectful, quietest student I had. And they told me that Mr. Federico got a job. Oh, they just hired, Nicholas Federico to teach. And originally I thought he had to teach math, so I was like, yeah, one of my students. Turns out he was a huge history buff. I knew that when he was here. I was just hoping that he taught math. But the funny thing is, in the first year that he taught, I remember Mr. Federico as this quiet little guy, sat in the front, did all his work, did it beautifully, but he was so nice and quiet. I hear these booms coming out of his classroom. And I said, what is that? I saw Mr. Federico with all, like you described.
Oh, yeah.
All the energy in the world.
Yeah.
The classroom, if anybody's visited an open house, a shadow day, you've seen his classroom. I call it his museum.
Oh, yeah.
I say he's the curator of room 301.
Easily.
Yeah, because but he brings that energy and he gets that love of his subject to spread to all of his students.
Right.
Mr. Federico's not alone. A lot of our teachers are that way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They bring that juice, and they bring that energy, they bring that knowledge and that expertise, and it rubs off on you guys.
Oh, yeah.
So, but you did, again, looking further down this transcript and knowing that you're in your sophomore year at St. John's, did you take advantage of any of the courses we have at Salesian that culminate in college credits?
I did. Well, they had when I was here, they had an Iona college class that was political science. And if you did a great job in the course, you would get 6 college credits. And I successfully completed that course because I'm a huge like political science buff. So I was like, absolutely. Plus, it was with Mr. Federico. So I did that and I got 6 college credits. So I can sit up here and tell you that when I went to go visit my advisor last semester and we were sitting down there talking and I'm like, hey, what classes should I take? What classes don't I have to take? How's my schedule going to look with these credits? And she essentially told me that I'm ahead, like in terms of a person that came into college, didn't have any credits from high school, like I'm ahead. So that means, eventually I don't have to worry about taking, the recommended 5 classes. Like I can dial back, open up my availability a little bit more. So I'm ahead a lot because of that. I took advantage of that.
So even though you took advantage of Salesian High School's college link program with Iona and went to St. John's, those credits transferred in there?
Yes, those credits, it was super easy. Just called them up and they sent the transcript over to the St. John's office and then boom, I had them.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And that seems like it lent itself to a little bit more flexibility in your studies and your even personal life.
Yeah.
If you don't want to take five classes, maybe
Right.
take 4 and you still get 15 credits.
Right, absolutely.
Consider 15 credits for that quarter. Okay. I think it's time I put you on the spot.
All right.
Because I know that a lot of people here are influential.
Yeah.
I know that everybody loved you.
Yeah.
I know that Ramon was like, everybody loved Ramon. If you had to pick, don't be shy.
Okay, I'm trying not to.
You're never going to be shy.
All right.
If you had to pick your Salesian High School Mount Rushmore, if you had to pick 3 or 4 of the most influential people to you,
Okay.
who would they be and tell me why?
Okay. Could I add an extra person?
Oh, you know what? I knew he wasn't going to be shy.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this isn't any order, but first person I would put would have to be Mr. Dwyer. He was an English teacher here for a number of years, and he was really influential for me. I can't even tell you the countless lunch periods, after school periods. I'm like in his classroom bothering him. We're talking about pop culture. He's explaining books to me. He's explaining literature. He was the one that got me into improv, which kind of helped me get out of my shell a lot. And he saw that I was a little bit funny, so I kind of worked on my jokes a little bit there. But in addition to that, he got me to theater when we had a theater program my freshman year. So Mr. Dwyer definitely has to be on that Mount Rushmore.
Okay.
Number 2.
And again, no particular order.
Yeah, no particular order.
We're
So,
not- yep.
okay, no one get mad at me. I have to put Mr. Federico. I
Okay.
mean, that guy,
Fair.
he truly is one of a kind. And he was a big help for me when I first became president because that responsibility, I've never had that responsibility before. And when I first started, it was a little bit overwhelming, and he can tell you this. I was overwhelmed a lot with all the things that they wanted me to do. And I remember I'd go to him, either early in the morning or at lunch or even after school, and we would sit and we would talk, and he would help me balance everything and tell me, okay, this is what I need to do, this is how I can do it, and this is how I should do it. So Mr. Federico definitely has to be on there.
And he took that basically as his role at the time as the student council moderator.
Right, he was. And he was a great moderator at the time.
Okay, I like it.
I have to put Miss Piazza.
Miss Piazza, classic.
Listen, I can go for hours about Miss Piazza. The blessed Miss P, as Mr. Federico says. The reason why I remember Miss P, and it's a beautiful story, when I took physics, we had to do the physics regents, and she always told me that, Ramon, you're always trying in class, you're always so, paying attention to detail, and it was a difficult course, but I felt like I could learn from her. Because after school, I'm going to her after school, and she's there in her room. She has apples and cookies, and she's helping students understand the material, and she's not making you feel stupid for asking a question. She's explaining it to you. And I remember the Regents. I believe I got a 74 on the Regents. But in physics standards, that's actually pretty good. When I went home that day, my mom told me that she got a voicemail. And I said, a voicemail from who? Miss P called my mother to tell her that I got a 74, on the physics regents. And she left a voicemail with my mom. I think my mom still was on the phone, and she told my mom how proud she was of me that I got that grade because she knows how hard I've worked throughout the year to, in physics. And that right there was a moment that I can never forget, Miss P. And she probably may not remember that she did that because of all the students that she has, but I'll never forget that from Miss P. So she has to be on there.
Yeah, that's huge.
Oh, yeah.
Those little things mean so much. And,
Yeah.
and students who've graduated 25 years ago come back and ask if Miss B's still here. So
Yeah.
she's a classic.
Easy.
Deserves her spot on Mount Rushmore. She's got my blessing.
Easily. Next person I have to put on here would be Mr. J. I remember my freshman year here, and I was new, and I didn't have a sibling that went to Salesian. I didn't have any friends that went to Salesian, so it was a whole new environment for me. And I remember, after school in his office, we're there, a whole bunch of the seniors at the time were there, and he's cracking jokes, he's making everybody laugh, and he's making everyone feel comfortable. And even though I'm sitting in the room and I'm unfamiliar with a lot of these people, he would still find a way to bring me into the conversation and say, hey, this is Ramon, introduce yourself. And that's how I got to know a lot of the seniors. And some of them I still talk to now. And if I run into them at a Salesian event, they still come up to me and say, hey, what's going on? So definitely Mr. J. I mean, that man had a big impact on me here.
So many kids,
Yeah.
so many of the students here. And what you just said described him perfectly. Come over here, say hello to Ramon.
Yeah.
Nobody was better than getting the group together than Mr. J.
Definitely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the fifth person I have, I can't forget her, Miss Bastone. Can't forget Miss Bastone. Oh, man. For freshman, sophomore, junior year, I took Italian in her class, and I'm telling you, it was such a joy to be in Miss Bastone's class. That Promethean board, oh man! And she'd put on like the little sound effects and the songs to teach you like the how to count in Italian, and we'd sit up there, we're like high school students singing together. Miss Bastone was truly a joy to have in my schedule. I really looked forward to her every single time of her class, and she always had everything organized. She always had jokes. She was pretty serious. You got to do your homework. Yep. You got to sit up straight. But Miss Bastone was definitely a joy, and even when I come back to Salesian, I always visit her classroom. She's the best.
Yeah, she really is. So great when the 8th graders come and spend the day. Like you said, she makes them all play. She always gets the boys to play on her board.
Yeah.
But you know when it's time to work. And
Oh,
you know when it's
yeah.
time to play with her.
Oh, don't play with Miss Bastone.
No. That's a pretty impressive Mount Rushmore right there. I know all 5 of your selections very well. I think they all deserve their spot up there. We do have to add a 5th spot, so your Mount Rushmore
Yeah.
is totally approved by me. Ramon, you've been an awesome guest. I said it in the top that I'm so happy that you accepted the invitation to come on here. Anything else you want to say before we break?
I would say that, being in college now and honestly almost finishing my 2nd year, I can sit back and I can reflect on my time at Salesian, and I could say I'm really grateful that I decided to come here. And even though a lot of the people that I had during my Salesian years are no longer here, the place itself is very important to me. And that's why I keep coming back, and if you need my help to, whether it's an alumni event or, open house or even the podcast here, I'll always come back to Salesian. I owe Salesian a debt of gratitude for what it's done for me and what it's done for my family. So.
Well, we appreciate it because you were the model student. You make it easy for us. Guys like you really make our jobs as educators, as secondary educators, that much easier. So I appreciate you coming on. I mean, you walk through the door, I still feel like you're a student here. It seems like you never left.
Yeah.
But I thought this was great. I appreciate all your answers. I appreciate your honesty.
Thank you.
And I think that's it, guys. I think Ramon's been an awesome guest.
All right.
We want to thank him once again, wish him the best of luck in finishing out his sophomore year at St. John's. But for everybody out there, it's been another episode of Eagles on the Air.